It's an all-out assault on the New York City sewer system as we discuss Chud, this time out on Drew Reviews. Guys, before I get into this review, I'd like to dedicate it to a good friend of mine, Russell. Get well soon, buddy. I know me and you have talked about this movie a lot at church, and I know you really appreciate this movie. So this one's for you. I really appreciate Chud. It's one of those guilty pleasure B movies that a lot of people don't want to admit they like. But if you're watching this review and you clicked on the thing, you probably like this movie, and you do have good taste if you're here for verification. So the basic plot of Chud, real briefly, is you've got this guy George Cooper and his girlfriend Lauren, and he used to be this big high fashion photographer, and she's a model, but he's recently received critical acclaim for this pictorial he's done on the homeless situation in New York. But he's noticed a lot of his homeless friends have gone missing. At the same time, you've got the police chief Bosch, played by Christopher Curry, and his wife has gone missing. And you've got the Reverend AJ, played by the great Daniel Stearn, Marv from Home Alone. It's great that John Hurd and Daniel Stern are both in this movie 6 years previous to Home Alone. But he runs a soup kitchen, and a lot of his regulars have been disappearing as well. So, you got all this going on. It's this big government cover up, and that's the basic plot to Chud. You've got these cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, chuds, and they're kidnapping people and eating them or turning them. I like you've actually got episodes of The Simpsons where there's chuds in New York. I thought that was pretty cool. But what I like about this movie, besides the acting, there's no inherently bad acting in Chud, is the grittiness. This thing's down in the sewer, and it's got this real gritty early 80s, late 70s New York just dirty vibe to it. It feels kind of like a Death Wish movie, just the way it was shot. I like that, and the fact that it's a creature feature on top of that. As I said, the acting is really good in this movie. John Hurd, he actually cares for these homeless people, that he did his pictorial with, and so you see the inner workings, the chemistry between those characters. And speaking of chemistry, Bosch, played by Curry, and AJ, or the Reverend, played by Stearn. I really like the chemistry that they have as they're down in the sewers, and he's showing Bosch all around because Bosch has an ulterior motive to find out what's going on with these people because his wife disappeared. She's in the opening scene walking her dog, and this creature comes out from this manhole and grabs them both. And speaking of the manhole, you've got this poster of the chud and the eyes glowing from underneath the manhole in New York City in the skyline behind him. And I just want to talk about how Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the movie a few years later would just completely copy this poster. I'll put it up right here so you can see it. But yeah, just unashamedly chud there. But I do like the acting in this movie, especially from those three leads. Kim Greist in this movie, who plays Lauren, she's not your typical scream queen in one of these movies. She actually fights back. A chud gets into their apartment, and its neck goes all elongated. She chops its head off. I really liked her. Wilson, the guy that works for the NRC, he's the suit, covering everything up. You find out that Chud didn't just stand for cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. It also stood for contamination hazard urban disposal, and he was part of this, bureaucracy where they couldn't move this toxic waste through New York City, so they hid it and dumped it in the sewers, and that's what sprung these things up. And they had this great meeting, with the chief of police and the mayor and Wilson, and there's some great acting there from Bosch and AJ, how they're going to turn him in if they don't listen. But I really like that character of Wilson. He's slimy, he's a bureaucrat, and you don't like him from the get go, especially there in that last scene around that diner, where he's really trying to cover his own butt. And speaking of that diner scene, a very young John Goodman plays a New York City cop, a really sleazy New York City cop. Just before the Chuds attack him, destroy everybody there. You have an explosive finale there around that diner. and they're gassing out all these chuds. There's a little bit of a chase there with Lauren. You've got AJ and Cooper underneath the streets, and Wilson's got all the manholes blocked with cars on top of them, so they can't get out. There's this big explosion. I really like the finale to this movie. But yeah, I really like this movie a lot. It could have been just over the top and hokey, these radioactive monsters in the New York City sewer system. But it's played very serious. And everybody that was acting in this movie brought their A game. The effects weren't too bad. Like I said, I really like the dingy, grimy atmosphere in this movie. They really are underground in a lot of these scenes. And I do like the way it's lit. But even like their apartment there, there's grime on the walls and stuff. It's kind of gross. But I like all those things. I like all the actors. I hadn't even talked about how there's this whole subplot where Lauren and Cooper are pregnant. And, this is 1984. And do we want to have this baby? Are we going to keep this baby? I know abortion was around then, but this pro-choice thing I'm not going to get into pro-choice, pro-life, but you know how it was tackling those issues all the way back then. But overall, I'm going to rate Chud a 6.4 out of 10. I know it's a lot lower than that on IMDb, but me and IMDb, I'm usually quite a bit higher than that in most cases. This movie is really fun. I'm going to have to go buy the Blu-ray. I know this is on Tubi. That's where I found it. That's where I've watched it, I think, the 2 or 3 times I've watched it. But this is one I definitely want to own. I've not seen Chud 2, Bud the Chud. I know it's got Daniel Stearn in it. I might end up checking that one out. But yeah, I really like this movie. Would highly recommend it if you're into kind of a grimy creature feature with some decent acting in it. Um, Let me know what you think about Chud down in the comments. So, guys, as always, I'd like to thank you for watching this review. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate all my viewers. Don't take any of you guys for granted. Um, as always on this channel, it's sci-fi, action, maybe just a little smattering of horror. I try to do those, but they don't go over too well, it seems like. Um, but yeah, I love doing creature features like this. So let me know if there's any more you'd like to see down in the comments. And until next time, guys, this is Andrew, and I'll see you down the line. And I thought it was pretty interesting. The freelance reporter that's following Cooper around, his name's Murphy. He was in the abyss, and the guy that's following around AJ, he's just kind of this muscle guy. He was also in the abyss. He's credited as Shadow in this movie. He's the guy that swallows the quarter.